Hello? Okay, I'm back. Alright. I'm upset, but I'm not mad. Give me just a second. I am so sorry. My computer was being a dick. Professional streamer. Jonah Scott. Everybody. There we go. Anyway, yes, hello, my name is the Tome Keeper, and since you've last seen me, some things have happened. I, lost control of a few of my stories. I apologize. I put forth a very confident air on our last meeting, and I hesitate to inform you that some of the stories have gotten loose in my house. Now, if you stay in this room, you should be fine. You should be fine. The only thing that you can do in order to keep yourself safe is just stay here with me and listen to me read. It keeps everyone sane, specifically me. Oh Lord. 90 seconds, please. Listen to the lovely music. The storm outside is wonderful. Jeeves! Okay, picture a world, yada yada yada. The stories are loose. And there's not much I can do about it until the exorcist arrives, so what we're going to do is lock the door, bar it with a chair, and wait. She says it's going to be here in over an hour. So we have some time until everything is put back in place. I'll be right back. All right. To light candles to keep them away from the door. Apologize. Normally I put forth this confident air and lock your doors. Tell the people you love that you do, because I cannot guarantee your safety tonight. Oh, a little drink has made me feel a bit more at home. Apologies for the sweat and the disheveled look. A lot has happened. Anyway, if we don't start reading soon, they may make it inside. Our first story tonight. Our first story tonight is called Licking. Get comfortable and try to relax. Roll up my sleeves. Okay. It's called licking. Sorry. It's called licking. You heard what I said. I must read it, or your lives are in danger. My great-grandmother lived alone up in the mountains at her cabin. I don't know if I can... Do you hear that? Do you hear that? Nose. Sounded like a ghost. It can't be. We should keep reading. My great-grandmother lived alone up in the mountains at a cabin. Her husband was dead, so she was there all alone. She only had one companion, and that was her loving dog. They both adored each other, and the dog was a great comfort to her. One night, she had gone to bed, and the dog had licked her hand, like he had done every night since her husband died. But this night was different. She had woken up in the middle of the night because she heard her dog whimpering. She wanted to comfort him and let her know she was there for him, so she stuck her hand out by the bed and she felt the dog gently lick her hand, like always. She had figured he was just cold, so she went back to sleep. The dog's whimpering had woken her up a second time in the night, so she stuck her hand out, and the dog licked it and went back to sleep. This happened a third time, and she stuck her hand out, and the dog stopped whimpering and came to lick her hand. She stayed awake a few moments afterward, and she went back to sleep again. In the morning, she woke up and stuck her hand out by the bed. But nothing licked her hand. She thought that the dog had already woken up and was just in the front room. She rolled over and got out of bed and heard a drip, 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 drip. She thought the sound was coming from the kitchen, so she walked over and turned the handles on the sink faucet. But that wasn't the source of the noise. After frustratingly checking the sink and its pipes, she gave up and continued into her bathroom to take a shower. As she got closer to the bathroom door, it was evident that the sound was coming from within. She opened the door, looked above the bathtub, and grasped her chest, inaudibly uttering horror. There, hanging from the light by his collar, was her loving companion. His blood was dripping into the bathtub. She screamed and began to cry. Wiping her eyes and sobbing, she turned around to look into the mirror. In the mirror, she saw the dog's reflection, and written on the mirror, in her dog's blood, with drips and streaks hanging down from each letter, were the words, "Humans can lick too." You have to have heard that. They're in the house. The only way we can keep them from getting in this room is to keep reading. I am so sorry. The next story is... The next short story is called Bad Dream. The boy walked up to his father and said, "Father, I had a bad dream. You blink your eyes and you pull up on your elbows. Your clock glows red in the darkness. You turn to look at it. It is 3:32 a.m. Do you want to climb in bed and talk to me about it?" "No, Dad. The oddness of the situation wakes you up more fully. You can barely make out your daughter's pale form in the darkness of your room. Why don't you want to talk to me about it, sweetie?" "Because in my dream, when I told you about the dream, the thing wearing Mommy's skin sat up. And for a moment you feel paralyzed. You cannot take your eyes off your daughter. The covers behind you begin to shift. These are short stories so that I can talk to you directly. They're getting closer. We have to find another one quickly. Oh God, we have to find another one quickly. Okay, this one's relatively short. Okay. For the longest time I have turned to ASMR to help relax me. ASMR stands for Autonomous Sensory Meridian Response. Basically a brain orgasm that is triggered by personal attention, tapping sounds, deliberate tasks, ear or microphone coverings, and things like that. Well, there's a multitude of things that can trigger that sort of response. It's been my go-to for anxiety for the last couple of months. You can find these videos easy enough on YouTube. I usually listen to a massage type ASMR before bed. But as I lay there, listening to an inaudible whispering video, I started to feel a bit chillier than usual. So I decided to get up and grab a sweater. My window was open and it was a bit of a colder night. Anyway, I took off my headphones and set them aside. When I went to pause the ASMR video, I realized that it had frozen. Sometimes our internet connection is a bit shoddy, and I was listening for about 30 minutes. So I guess that could explain it. My internet had been trying to load an hour-long video. Still, it should have loaded by now, right? I decided to click near the beginning of the video to back up and just listen to the same 30 minutes before bed. When I hovered over the progress bar, however, I noticed that the video had never played past the first 10 minutes. In retrospect, I should have realized something was wrong. And then I heard breath on my ears. "I don't think these are enough. I don't think these are long enough. They don't sound sated. God, we have to flip through several. Okay, here we go. This one seems longer. don't want to lose my arm. I thought we were getting to know each other. I'm sorry if I came on a little strong. I'm sorry if I put too much pomp and circumstance in our first meeting. But I have to keep reading. Russian researchers in the late 1940s kept 5 people awake for 15 days using an experimental gas-based stimulant. They were kept in a sealed environment to carefully monitor their oxygen intake, so the gas didn't kill them. Since it was toxic in high concentrations. This was before closed-circuit cameras, so they had only microphones and 5-inch thick glass porthole-sized windows in the chamber to monitor them. The chamber was stocked with books, cots to sleep on but no bedding, running water, and a toilet. Also enough dried food to last all 5 over a month. The test subjects were political prisoners deemed enemies of the state during World War II. Everything was fine for the first 5 days. The subjects hardly complained, having been promised falsely that they would be freed if they submitted to the test and did not sleep for 30 days. The conversations and activities were monitored, and it was noted that they continued to talk about increasingly traumatic incidents in their past. And the general tone of their conversations took on a darker aspect after the 4-day mark. After 5 days, they started to complain about the circumstances and events that led them to where they are and where they were. They started to demonstrate severe paranoia. They stopped talking to each other and began alternately whispering into the microphones and one-way mirrored portholes. Oddly, they all seemed to think they could win the trust of the experimenters by turning over their comrades. The other subjects in captivity with them. At the first, the researchers suspected this was an effect of the gas itself. But after 9 days, the first of them started screaming. He ran the length of the chamber repeatedly, at the top of his lungs, yelling for 3 hours straight. He continued to attempt to scream, but was only able to produce squeaks. I don't know if I have to keep reading. After 3 more days passed, the researchers checked their microphones hourly to make sure they were working, since they thought it impossible that no sound could be coming with 5 people inside. The oxygen consumption in the chamber indicated that all 5 must still be alive. In fact, it was the amount of oxygen 5 people would consume at a very heavy level of strenuous exercise. On the morning of the 14th day, the researchers did something they said they would not do to get a reaction from their captives. They used the intercom inside the chamber, hoping to provoke any response from the captives. They were afraid we're dead, or vegetables. They announced, "We are opening the chamber. We are opening the chamber to test the microphones. Step away from the door and lie flat on the floor, or you will be shot. Compliance will earn you, one of you, your immediate freedom." To their surprise, they heard a single phrase in a calm voice respond, We no longer want to be freed. Debate broke out among the researchers and the military forces funding the research. Unable to provoke any more responses using the intercom, it was finally decided to open the chamber at midnight on the 15th day. The chamber was flushed with all manner of things to rid it of the stimulant gas. It was filled with fresh air, and immediately voices from the microphone began to object. 3 different voices began begging, as if pleading for the life of loved ones, to turn the gas back on. The chamber was opened and soldiers sent in to retrieve the test subjects. They began to scream louder than ever, and so did the soldiers when they saw what was inside. 4 of the 5 test subjects were still alive, although no one could rightly call the state that any of them were in life. The food rations, past day 5, had not been so much as touched. There were chunks of meat from the dead test subject's thighs and chest, stuffed into the drain at the center of the chamber, blocking the drain and allowing 4 inches of water to accumulate on the floor. Precisely how much of the water on the floor was actually blood was never determined. All 4 surviving test subjects also had large portions of muscle and skin torn away from their bodies. The destruction of flesh and exposed bone on the fingertips indicated that the wounds were inflicted by hand, not with teeth as the researchers initially thought. Closer examination of the position and angles of the wounds indicated that most, if not all of them, were self-inflicted. The abdominal organs below the rib cage of all 4 test subjects had been removed, while the heart, lungs, and diaphragm remained in place. The skin and most of the muscles attached to the ribs had been ripped off, exposing the lungs through the rib cage. All the muscles and organs remained intact. They had just been taken out and laid on the floor, fanning out around the eviscerated, but still living bodies of the subjects. The digestive tract of all 4 could be seen to be working, digesting food. It quickly became apparent that what they were digesting was their own flesh they had ripped off and eaten over the course of days. Most of the soldiers were Russian special operatives at the facility, but still, many refused to return to the chamber to remove the subject. They continued to scream to be left in the chamber, and alternatively begged and demanded that the gas be turned back on, lest they fall asleep. To everyone's surprise, the test subjects put up a fierce fight. In the process of being removed from the chamber, one of the Russian soldiers died from having his throat ripped out. Another was gravely injured by having his testicles ripped off and an artery in his leg severed by one of the subject's teeth. Another 5 of the soldiers lost their lives, if you count ones that committed suicide in the following weeks. The incident. In the struggle, one of the 4 living subjects had his spleen ruptured, and he bled out almost immediately. The medical researchers attempted to sedate him, but this proved impossible. He was injected with more than 10 times the human dose of morphine, and still fought like a cornered animal, breaking the ribs and the arms of one doctor. When the heart was seen to beat for full 2 minutes after he'd bled out, there was almost no air in his vascular system. Even after it stopped, he continued to scream and flail for another 3 minutes, struggling to attack anyone in reach and just repeating the word "more" over and over, weaker and weaker, until he fell silent. The surviving 3 test subjects were heavily restrained and moved to a medical facility. The 2 with intact vocal cords, continuously begging for the gas, demanded to be kept awake. The most injured of the 3 was taken to the surgical operating room the facility had. And in the process of preparing the subject to have his organs placed back within his body, it was found that he was effectively immune to the sedative they had given him to prepare him for the surgery. He fought furiously against the restraint when his anesthetic gas was brought out to put him under. He managed to tear his way through most of the 4-inch wide leather straps on one of his wrists, even through the weight of a 200-pound soldier holding that wrist as well. It took a little more anesthetic than normal to put him under, and the instant his eyelids fluttered and closed, his heart stopped. In the autopsy of the test subject that died on the operating table, it was found that his blood had triple the level of oxygen normal in a human. His muscles that were still attached to his skeleton were badly torn, and he had broken 9 bones in his struggle to not be subdued. More of them were from the force of his own muscles he exerted on them. The second survivor had been the first of the group of 5 to start screaming, his vocal cords destroyed. He was unable to beg or object to surgery, and he only reacted by shaking his head violently in disapproval. When the anesthetic gas was brought near him, he shook his head yes when someone suggested reluctantly they should try the surgery without anesthetic. He did not react for the entire 6-hour procedure of replacing his abdominal organs and attempting to cover them with what remained of his skin. The surgeon presiding stated repeatedly that it should be medically impossible for the patient to still be alive. One terrified nurse assistant stated that she had seen the patient's mouth curl into a smile several times whenever his eyes met hers. When the surgery ended, the subject looked at the surgeon and began to wheeze loudly, attempting to talk while struggling. Assuming this must have been something of drastic importance, the surgeon had a pen and pad fetched so the patient could write his message. It was simple. Keep cutting. The other test subjects were given the same surgery, both without anesthetic as well, although they had to be injected with a paralytic for the duration of the operation. The surgeon found it impossible to perform the operation while the patients laughed continuously. Once paralyzed, the subjects could only follow the attending researchers with their eyes. The paralytic cleared their system in an abnormally short period of time, and they were soon trying to escape their bonds. The moment they could speak, they were again asking for the stimulant gas. The researchers tried asking why they had injured themselves, why they had ripped out their own guts, and why they wanted to be given the gas again. The only response was given, "I must remain awake." All 3 subjects' restraints were reinforced, and they were placed back into the chamber, awaiting determination as to what should be done with them. The researchers, facing the wrath of the military benefactors for having failed the stated goals of their project, considered euthanizing the surviving subjects. The commanding officer, an ex-KGB, instead saw potential and wanted to see what would happen if they were put back on the gas. The researchers strongly objected but were overruled. In preparation for being sealed in the chamber again, the subjects were connected to an EEG monitor and had their restraints padded for long-term confinement. To everyone's surprise, all three stopped struggling. The moment it was let slip that they were going back on the gas, they grew silent. It was obvious at this point all three were putting up a great struggle to stay awake. One of the subjects that could speak was humming loudly and continuously. The mute subject was straining his legs against the leather bonds with all his might, first left, then right, then left again, for something to focus on. The remaining subject was holding his head off his pillow and blinking rapidly. Having been the first to be wired for EEG, most of the researchers were monitoring his brainwaves in surprise. They were normal for most of the time, but sometimes flatlined inexplicably. It looked as if he were repeating suffering brain death before returning to normal. As they focused on paper, scrolling out of the brainwave monitor, only one nurse saw his eyes slip shut at the same moment his head hit the pillow. His brainwaves immediately changed to that of deep sleep, then flatlined for the last time as his heart simultaneously stopped. The only remaining subject that could speak started screaming to be sealed in now. His brainwaves showed the same flatline as the one who had just died from falling asleep. The commander gave the order to seal the chamber with both subjects inside as well as the three researchers. One of the named three immediately threw his gun and shot the commander point blank between the eyes, then turned the gun on the mute subject and blew his brains out as well. He pointed his gun at the remaining subject, still restrained to a bed as the remaining members of the medical and research team fled the room. "I won't be locked in here with these things. Not with you," he screamed at the man strapped to the table. "What are you?" he demanded. "I must know." The subject smiled. "Have you forgotten so easily?" the subject asked. "We are you. We are the madness that lurks within you all, begging to be free at any moment in your deepest animal mind. We are what you hide from in your beds. We are what you sedate into silence and paralysis when you go to the nocturnal haven where we cannot tread." The researcher paused, then aimed at the subject's heart and fired. The EEG flatlined as the subject weakly choked out. "So nearly free." That was close. We must keep reading. Don't leave. Whatever you do, don't leave. I have to keep reading. I first met in person with Mary E. in the summer of 2007. I had arranged with her husband of 15 years, Terence, to see her for an interview. Mary had initially agreed since I was not a newsman, but rather an amateur writer gathering information for a few early college assignments, and if all went according to plan, some pieces of fiction. We scheduled the interview for a particular weekend when I was in Chicago, on unrelated business, but at the last moment Mary changed her mind and locked herself in the couple's bedroom, refusing to meet with me. For half an hour I sat with Terence as we camped outside the bedroom door. I listened and took notes while he attempted fruitlessly to calm his wife. The things Mary said made little sense, but fit into the pattern I was expecting, though I could not see her. I could tell from her voice that she was crying, and more often than not, her objections to speaking with me centered around an incoherent diatribe on her dreams, her nightmares. Terence apologized profusely when we ceased the exercise, and I did my best to take it in stride. Recall that I wasn't a reporter in search of a story, but merely a curious young man in search of information. Besides, I thought at the time I could perhaps find another similar case if I put my mind and resources to it. Mary E. was the sysup for a small Chicago-based bulletin board system in 1992 when she first encountered smile.jpg. And her life changed forever. She and Terence had been married only for 5 months. Mary was one of an estimated 400 people who saw the image when it was posted as a hyperlink on the bulletin board system. Though she was the only one who has spoken openly about the experience. The rest have remained anonymous, or are perhaps dead. In 2005, when I was only in 10th grade, smile.jpg was the first brought to my attention by my burgeoning interest in web-based phenomena. Mary was most often cited victim of what is sometimes referred to as smile.dog. The being smile.jpg is reputed to display. What caught my interest, other than the obvious macabre elements of the cyber legend and my proclivity towards such things, was the sheer lack of information. Usually to the point that people don't believe it exists other than a rumor or a hoax. It is unique because though the entire phenomenon centers on a picture file, that file is nowhere to be found on the internet. Certainly, many photo-manipulated simulacra litter the web, showing up with most frequency on sites such as 4chan, particularly the X-focused paranormal sub-board. It is suspected that these are fakes because they do not have the effect of the true smile.jpg. It is believed to have, namely, sudden onset temporal lobe epilepsy and acute anxiety. The purported reaction in the viewer is one of the reasons the phantom-like smile.jpg is regarded with such disdain, since it is, well, patently absurd. Though, depending on whom you ask, the reluctance to acknowledge smile.jpg's existence might be just as much out of fear as it is out of disbelief. Neither smile.jpg nor smile.dog is mentioned anywhere on Wikipedia, though the website features articles on such other, perhaps more scandalous shock sites such as Goatsy, or Two Girls, One Cup. Any attempt to create a page pertaining to smile.jpg is summarily deleted by any of the encyclopedia's many administrators. Encounters with smile.jpg are the stuff of internet legend. Mary E.'s story is not unique. There are unverified rumors of smile.jpg showing up in the early days of Usenet, and even one persistent tale that in 2002 a hacker flooded the forums of humor and satire website Something Awful with a deluge of smile.dog pictures rendering most of the forum's users at the time an epileptic. It is also said that in the mid to late 90s, smile.jpg circulated on Usenet and as an attachment of a chain email, with the subject "Smile, God loves you." Yet, despite the huge exposure these stunts would generate, there are very few people who admit to having experienced any of them, and no trace of the fire or any link has ever been discovered. Those who claim to have seen smile.jpg often weakly joke that they were far too busy to save a copy of the picture to their hard drive. However, all alleged victims offer the same description of the photo: a dog-like creature, usually described as appearing similar to a Siberian husky, illuminated by the flash of a camera, sits in a dim room, the only background detail visible being a human hand extending from the darkness near the left side of the frame. The hand is empty, but it is usually described as beckoning. Of course, most attention is given to the dog, or dog creature, as some victims are more certain than others about what they claim to have seen. The muzzle of the beast is reputedly split in a wide grin, revealing 2 rows of very white, very straight, very sharp, and very human-looking teeth. This is, of course, not a description given immediately after viewing the picture, but rather a recollection of the victims, who claim to have seen the picture endlessly repeated in their mind's eye during the time they are, in reality, having epileptic fits. These fits are reported to continue indeterminably, often while the victim sleeps, resulting in very vivid and disturbing nightmares. These may have been treated with medication, though in some cases it is more effective than others. Mary E., I assume, was not on effective medication. That is why, after my visit to her apartment in 2007, I sent out feelers to several folklore and urban legend-oriented news groups, websites, and mailing lists, hoping to find the name of a supposed victim of smile.jpg who felt more interested in talking about his experiences. For a time, nothing happened, and at length I completely forgot about my pursuits since I had begun my freshman year of university, and was quite busy. Mary contacted me via email, however, near the beginning of March 2008. This is the contents of that email. Dear Mr. L., I am incredibly sorry about my behavior last summer when you came to interview me. I hope you understand that it was no fault of yours, but rather my own problems that led me to act out as I did. I realized that I could have handled the situation more decorously. However, I hope you will forgive me. At the time, I was afraid. You see, for 15 years, I've been haunted by smile.jpg. Smile.dog comes to me in my sleep every night. Now, I know that sounds silly, but it's true. There is an ineffable quality about my dreams, my nightmares, that makes them completely unlike any real dreams I've ever had. I do not move and I do not speak. I simply look ahead, and the only thing ahead of me is the scene from that horrible picture. I see the beckoning hand, and I see smile.dog. It talks to me. I thought for a long time about my options. I could show it to a stranger, a coworker. I could even show it to Terrence, as much as the idea disgusted me. And what would happen then? Well, if smile.dog kept its word, I could sleep. Yet if it lied, what would I do? And who is to say something worse wouldn't come for me if I did as the creature talked? So I did nothing for 15 years. Though I kept a floppy disk hidden amongst my things. Every night, For 15 years, Smile.dog has come to me in my sleep and demanded that I spread the word. For 15 years, I have stood strong, though there have been hard times. Many of my fellow victims on the BBS boards where I first encountered Smile.jpg stopped posting, and I heard some of them committed suicide. Others remained silent, simply disappearing off the face of the web. There are the ones I worry about the most, the ones who have disappeared. I certainly hope you will forgive me, Mr. L, but last summer when you contacted me and my husband were talking about an interview. I was nearing the breaking point. I did not care if Smile.dog was lying or not. I wanted it to end. You were a stranger, someone I had no connection with. And I thought I wouldn't feel bad when I took you to the diskette, gave it to you as part of your research and sealed your fate. But before you arrived, I realized what I was doing. I was plotting to ruin your life. I could not stand the thought, and in fact, I still can't. I am ashamed, Mr. L, and I hope this is a warning that will dissuade you from further investigation of Smile.jpg. You may in time encounter someone who is, if not weaker than I, then wholly more depraved. Someone who will not hesitate to follow Smile.dog's orders. Stop while you're still yourself. Sincerely, Mary E. Terrence contacted me later that month with the news that his wife had killed herself. Cleaning up the various things she'd left behind, closing email accounts and the like, he happened upon the above message. He was a man in shambles. He wept as he told me to listen to his wife's advice. He'd found the diskette. He revealed and burned it until there was nothing but a stinking pile of blackened plastic. The part that most disturbed him, however, was that the diskette had hissed as it melted, like some sort of animal, he said. I will admit that I was a little uncertain about how to respond to this. At first, I thought perhaps it was a joke, with the couple belatedly playing with the situation in order to get a rise out of me, but a quick check of several Chicago newspapers' online obituaries found Mary E. was indeed dead. There was, of course, no mention of suicide in the article. I decided that for at least a time, I would not pursue the subject of Smile.jpg, especially since I had finals coming up at the end of May. But the world has an odd way of testing up. Almost a full year after I'd returned from my disastrous interview with Mary E., I received another email. Hello. I found your email address through a mailing list. Your profile said you were interested in Smile Dog. I've seen it. It's not as bad as everyone says. I've sent it to you. Here. Just spreading the word. The final line chilled me to the bone. According to my email, there was one file attachment called, naturally, Smile.jpg. I considered downloading it for some time. It was most likely a fake, I imagined, and even if it weren't, I was never wholly convinced of Smile.jpg's peculiar powers. Mary E.'s account had shaken me, yes, but she was probably mentally unstable anyway. After all, how could a single image do what Smile.jpg was said to accomplish? What sort of creature was it that could break one's mind with only the power of the eye? And if such things were patently absurd, then why did the legend exist at all? If I downloaded the image, if I looked at it, and if Mary turned out to be correct, if Smile.dog came into my dreams, demanding I spread the word, what would I do? Would I live my life as Mary had, fighting against the urge to give in until I died? Or would I simply spread the word, eager to be put to rest? And if I chose the latter route, how could I do it? Whom would I burden in turn? If I went through with my earlier intention to write a short article about Smile.jpg, I decided I could attach it as evidence. And anyone who read the article, anyone who took interest, would be affected. And even assuming the Smile.jpg attached to the email was genuine, would I be capricious enough to save myself in that manner? The picture is attached. I have to keep reading. I have to keep reading. We have to find one long enough. The short ones don't keep them entertained for long. Let's see. Oh, okay. This one should be long enough. This one should be good. We can buy ourselves some time. We can buy ourselves some time. We'll be fine. Jeeves! How much longer until he arrives? The storm is making it longer. He won't be here for another hour. I don't know if I can do this. I'm so sorry. My eyes... My eyes struggle to open. I blink several times, trying to take in my surroundings. A stark, white ceiling looms above me. Even from a distance, I can make out the little cracks that scour the surface. Hundreds of tiny passages into darkness, shifting around a bit. I feel the starchy sheets beneath me, outstretched hands, grasping them. They feel stale and unwashed. Unsurprisingly, the rigid mattress beneath me is no more comforting. I slowly lean up and glance around the room. It's dimly lit. A single desk lamp rests on a table in the far corner. A few books are strewn across the table's surface, none of which are recognizable from where I'm sitting. The table looks worn down, as if it's been there for decades. Out of the corner of my eye, I notice the wall next to me. It's covered in black etches and scribbles. My eyes wander across the remaining walls, but I soon look away. The same markings enshroud the entire room. I begin to sift through my memories, trying to remember what could possibly have brought me to such a place. But to my horror, I can recall nothing. Scarce images float to the surface, yet nothing concrete enough to be considered sensible. My heart begins racing. My temples throb as I clench my palms to the side of my head. Where am I? And more importantly, who am I? Deciding I need to do something, I slide myself off the bed, feeling my body creak from the sudden movement. As my bare feet hit the cold ground, a shiver shoots up my spine. It's freezing. I feel uneasy. Something doesn't feel right. I creep towards the table, unable to shake the dread that's suddenly washed over me. I look at the 3 books on the table, searching for something that might be helpful. But the covers, they're so worn and they're unrecognizable. Just then I notice a folder underneath one of the books. I hastily slide the book onto the floor and grasp the folder. My eyes bulge. Written in fresh blood are the words, "Open me," followed by a crudely drawn exclamation point. It's odd, but I can't help sharing the writer's excitement. My hands tremble as I open the folder. Inside is a thick stack of papers, wrinkled from time. As I begin to rifle through the pages, I find its compilation of files on someone under the alias of Patient 37. I continue to read through the entries. Aggressive, highly intelligent, violent, murderous, masochist. I cringe. To my horror, the entries go on and on. Countless recollections of unprecedented brutality and terror. Pictures of mutilated bodies plague the folder. It's almost as if I can feel the blood of the victims oozing through the pages. After what feels like hours, I get to the last page. On the picture of a man is inside, if you can call him that. He's in his late 30s. His eyes are sunken and dark, covered in shadow. His nose is jagged, clearly broken earlier in life. A twisted grin covers the bottom of his face. The hair, to my surprise, is neatly combed to the left, a stark contrast to the rest of the image. As I continue to look at the portrait, I can't help but shudder. There is something almost inhuman about the man. My eyes wander, and I notice the red at the bottom of the page. Another note, but this time it exclaims, "Come find me." I drop the folder, stumble backward. I suddenly feel nauseous, so I'm hit by a crushing wave of fear. This man, this murderer, wants me to come find him? Thoughts start swirling in my head. I drop to one knee. Confusion overwhelms me. Why would I seek him out? This Patient 37, what does he want with me? Claustrophobia kicked in. I look to the open door beyond the bed, Gritting my teeth, I stand up and trudge towards the floor. My hand squeezes at the door handle. I stand there, panting for a bit. Sweat drips down my forehead. There is no way of knowing what's on the other side. I close my eyes, and I turn the handle. It opens. I'm met by a narrow corridor. The lights above flicker, giving off just enough light to see. There is an intercom on the far side of the wall. The right light below the speaker blinks rapidly. Just then, music begins to play through the entire hallway. The soft keys of a piano. Simple, but beautiful. I recognize it. Fauré's Nocturne, number 1 in E-flat minor, opus 33, number 1. I put my hands to my head. Why do I know this song? Why is it playing in such a wretched place? Continuing to struggle with my thoughts, I walk through the corridor, feeling strangely guided by the melody. The hallway is barren, just like the prior room. No sound can be heard except for the rhythmic fingering of the piano keys. Oddly, there are no windows, just white walls. I walk over to one of the walls and brush my hand up against it as I walk. The pattern gives off a soothing sensation in my palm. I close my eyes and continue to walk. My eyes jolt open as the pattern on the wall changes. The silence is broken as my hand slides through something wet. I quickly pull my hand back and stare at it in the quivering light. It's covered in blood. I let out a shrill as my eyes dart towards the wall. Drawn on the surface is a thick red arrow, pointing in the direction I'm walking. I look onward. The body lies on the ground. I rush over but immediately notice there's no hope. The man's eyes are gouged out and a knife protrudes from his stomach. Without thinking, I grab the knife's handle and I pull. Blood erupts from the wound and spatters on my face. I cry out and I frantically wipe it from my eyes. This is disgusting. This can't be happening. Where the fuck am I? I need to get out of here. Clenching the knife, I move forward. I pass a large front desk on my right. An elderly woman lies face down, a pair of scissors impaled in the back of her head. Blood pooled around her face. A security monitor is on the wall behind her. It's nothing but static. I grip my teeth and I look down. I need to keep moving. As I reach the end of the long hallway, I see another arrow, this time pointing right. Written above it reads a message. Almost there. What kind of sick fucking game was this? Who would do something like this? Yet I can't help but follow the direction. I'm nothing but a man lost in a strange world. I turn to the right and see a green light coming from an opening at the end of the hallway. I approach carefully, being lured like an animal into a cage. And once I'm close, I notice it's an entrance to a bathroom. I can make out shapes on the ground, but I'm not too far away to see what they are. I shudder. And based on past experiences, I know it's not going to be pleasant. In the doorway now, my eyes scan the room. Bodies, at least 5, cover the floor. The entire surface is covered in red. I can barely make out a clean spot on the once white floor. It's disgusting, grotesque, and I can't help but move forward. The melody continues to propel me into the unknown. The bathroom lights flicker while I navigate around the bodies. Looking around, the room is a pit of despair. Blood is spattered across the walls. The once pristine tiles, now unrecognizable. Strands of meat hang from stall openings, dark liquid curdles on the floor beneath them. This can't be real. This can't be real, can it? Just then, I notice a message on the mirror. I can't make it out from my angle, so I step closer. My heart is racing out of my chest. The adrenaline surges through every ounce of my body. I inch closer and closer, trembling more with each step. Once I'm directly in front of the mirror, I stop. I can make out the letters. I can read the message on top of the mirror. My heart slows. My breathing calms. I stare into the window, the mirror, and slowly exhale. Written above my head are 3 simple words. Hello, patient 37. Everything stops. Silence. A twisted smile creeps across my face. A whisper escapes my mouth. Found you. It stopped. The banging has stopped. There's no more. There's no more loud noises. Jeeves is dead. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. Jeeves is gone. We are not safe. I have to keep reading. 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 We have half an hour until the exorcist arrives to put the stories back where they belong, but I have to keep reading. Fuck. He was my best friend. It was just me and him up here for years. I have to keep reading. I'm not sure why I'm writing this down on paper. And not on my computer. I guess I've just noticed some odd things. It's not that I don't trust the computer, I need to organize my thoughts. I need to get down all the details, somewhere objective, somewhere I know where it can't be read, deleted, changed. Not that that's happened. It's just everything blurs together here. And the fog of memory lends a strange cast to these things. I'm starting to feel cramped in this small apartment. Maybe that's the problem. I just had to go and choose the cheapest apartment, the only one in the basement. The lack of windows down here makes day and night seem to slip by seamlessly. I haven't been out in a few days because I've been working on this programming project so intensively. I suppose I just wanted to get it done. Hours of sitting and staring at a monitor can make anyone feel strange, I know, but I don't think that's it. I'm not sure when I first started to feel like something was odd. I can't even define what it is. Maybe I just haven't talked to anyone in a while. That's the first thing that crept up on me. Everyone I normally talk to online while I was programming has been idle or simply not logged in at all. My instant messages go unanswered. The last email I got from anybody was... I don't know if I can do this. We have to do this. There's no other way. Cookie. We're going to do it for Jeeves. We're going to do it for Jeeves. My instant messages go unanswered. The last email I got from anybody was a friend, saying he'd talk to me when he got back from the store. And that was yesterday. I'd call with my cell phone, but reception's terrible down here. That's it. I just need to call someone. I'm going to go outside. Well, that didn't work so well. As the tingle of fear fades, I'm feeling a little ridiculous for being scared at all. I looked in the mirror before I went out, but I didn't shave the 2-day stubble I'd grown. Figured I was going out for a quick cell phone call. Didn't change my shirt, though, because it was lunchtime and I'd guessed that I'd run into at least one person I know. It didn't end up happening, and I wish it did. When I went out, I opened the door to my small apartment slowly. A small feeling of apprehension had somehow already lodged itself in me. For some indefinable reason, I chalked it up to not having spoken to anyone but myself for a day or two. I peered down the dingy grey hallway, made dingier by the fact that it was a basement hallway. On one end, a large metal door led to the building's furnace room. It was locked, of course. 2 dreary soda machines stood by it. I bought a soda from the first one the day I moved in, but it had a 2-year-old expiration date. I'm fairly sure nobody knows the machines are even down here. My cheap landlady just doesn't care to get them restocked. I closed my door softly and walked the other direction, taking care not to make a sound. I have no idea why I chose to do that, but it was fun. Giving into the strange impulse not to break the droning hum of the soda machines, at least for a moment. I got to the stairwell and took the stairs up to the building's front door. I looked through the heavy door's small window and received quite the shock. It was definitely not lunchtime. City gloom hung over the dark street outside, and the traffic lights in the intersection in the distance blinked yellow. Dim clouds, purple and black from the glow of the city, hung overhead. Nothing moved, save the few sidewalk trees that shifted in the wind. I remember shivering, though I wasn't cold. Maybe it was the wind outside. I could vaguely hear it through the heavy metal door, and I knew it was that unique, late kind of wind, the kind that was constant, cold, quiet, save for the rhythmic music it made as it passed through countless unseen tree leaves. I decided not to go outside. Instead, I lifted my cell phone door to the door's little window and checked the signal meter. The bars filled up the meter, and I smiled. It's time to hear someone else's voice, I remember thinking, relieved. It was such a strange thing to be afraid of nothing. I shook my head, laughing at myself silently. I hit speed dial from my best friend Amy's number and held the phone up to my ear. It rang once, but then it stopped. Nothing happened. I listened to the silence for a good 20 seconds and then I hung up. I frowned and looked at the signal meter again, still full. I went to dial her number again, but the phone rang in my hand, startling me. I put it up to my ear. "Hello?" I asked, immediately fighting down a small shock at hearing the first spoken voice in days, even if it was my own. I had gotten used to the droning hum of the building's inner workings. My computer, the soda machines in the hallway. There was no response to my greeting at first. But then, finally, a voice came. "Hey," said a clear, male voice, obviously of college age. Like me. "Who's this?" "John," I replied, confused. "Oh, sorry, wrong number," he replied, then hung up. I lowered the phone slowly and leaned against the thick brick wall of the stairwell. That was strange. I looked at my received calls list, but the number was unfamiliar. Before I could think on it any further, the phone rang loudly, shocking me yet again. This time, I looked at the caller before I answered. It was another unfamiliar number. This time, I held the phone up to my ear but said nothing. I heard nothing but the general background noise of a phone. Then a familiar voice broke my attention. "John?" was the single word in Amy's voice. I breathed a sigh of relief. "Hey, it's you," I replied. "Well, who else would it be?" she responded. "Oh, the number. I'm at a party. Oh, sorry, wrong accent. Oh, the number. I'm at a party on 7th Street and my phone died, just as you called me. This is someone else's phone, obviously." "Oh, okay," I said. "Where are you?" she asked. My eyes glanced over the drab whitewashed cinder block walls and the heavy metal door with its small window. "At my building," I sighed. Just feeling cooped up. "You should come here," she said, laughing. "No, I don't feel like looking at some strange place by myself in the middle of the night," I said, looking out the window at the silent, windy street that secretly scared me just a tiny bit. I think I'm going to keep working. You'll go to bed. Nonsense, she replied. I can come get you. Your building is close to 7th Street, right? How drunk are you? I asked lightheartedly. You know where I live. Of course, she said abruptly. I guess I can't get there by walking, huh? You could if you wanted to waste a half an hour, I told her. Right, she said. Okay, I have to go now. Good luck with your work. I lowered my phone once more, looking at the numbers flashing as the call ended, and the droning silence suddenly reasserted itself in my ears. The two strange calls and eerie street outside just drove home my aloneness in this empty stairwell. Perhaps from having seen too many scary movies, I had the sudden inexplicable idea that something could look in the door's window and see me. Some sort of horrible entity that hovered at the edge of aloneness, just waiting to creep up on unsuspecting people that strayed too far from human beings. I knew the fear was irrational, but nobody else was around, so I jumped down the stairs, ran down the hallway into my room, and closed the door as swiftly as I could, while still staying silent. Like I said, I feel a little ridiculous for being scared of nothing, and the fear has already faded. Writing this down helps a lot. It makes me realize that nothing is wrong. It filters out half-formed thoughts and fears and leaves only cold, hard facts. It's late. Got a call from a wrong number, and Amy's phone died. So she called me back from another number. Yes, nothing strange is happening. Still, there was something off little about that conversation. I know it could have just been the alcohol she had, or was it even her that seemed off to me? Or was it... yes, that was it. I didn't realize until this moment, writing these things down. I knew writing things down would help. She said she was at a party, but I only heard silence in the background. Of course, that doesn't mean anything in particular, as she could have just gone outside to make the call. No, that couldn't be it either. I didn't hear the wind. I need to see if the wind is still blowing. The next day, I forgot to finish writing last night. I'm not sure what I expected to see when I ran up the stairwell and looked out the heavy metal door's window. I'm feeling ridiculous. Last night's fear seemed hazy and unreliable to me. Unreasonable for me to be afraid of nothing. I can't wait to go out into the sunlight. I'm going to check my email, shave, shower, finally get out of here. Wait. I think I heard something. It was thunder. That whole sunlight and fresh air thing didn't happen. I went out into the stairwell and up the stairs, only to find disappointment. The heavy metal door's little window showed only flowing water as torrential rain slammed against it. Only a very dim, gloomy light filtered in through the rain. But at least I knew it was daytime, even if it was a grey, sickly wet day. I tried looking out the window and waiting for lightning to illuminate the gloom. The rain was too heavy, and I couldn't make out anything more than a vague, weird shape moving at odd angles in the waves, washing down the windows. Disappointed, I turned around, but I didn't want to go back to my room. Instead, I wandered further up the stairs, past the first floor and the second. The stairs ended at the third floor, the highest floor in the building. I looked through the glass and ran up the outer wall of the stairwell. But it was that warped, thick kind that scatters the light. Not that there was much to see through the rain to begin with. I opened the stairwell and wandered down the hallway. The 10 or so thick wooden doors, painted blue a long time ago, were all closed. I listened as I walked, but it was the middle of the day, so I wasn't surprised that I heard nothing but the rain outside. As I stood there in the dim hallway listening to the rain, I had the strange, fleeting impression that the doors were standing like silent granite monoliths erected by some ancient, forgotten civilization for some unfathomable guardian purpose. Lightning flashed. I could have sworn that for just a moment the old, grainy blue wood looked like rough stone. I laughed at myself for letting my imagination get the best of me. But then it occurred to me that the dim gloom and lightning must mean there was a window somewhere in the hallway. A vague memory surfaced, and I suddenly recalled that the third floor had an alcove and an inset window halfway down the floor's hallway. Excited to look out into the rain and possibly see another human being, I quickly walked over to the alcove, finding the large, thin glass window. Rain washed down it, as with the front door's window, but I couldn't open this one. I reached a hand out to slide it open, but hesitated. I had the strangest feeling that if I opened that window, I would see something absolutely horrifying on the other side. Everything's been so odd lately. So I came up with a plan, and I came back here to get what I needed. I don't seriously think anything will come of it, but I'm bored, it's raining, and I'm going stir-crazy. I came back to get my webcam. The cord isn't long enough to reach the third floor by any means, so instead I'm going to hide it between the two soda machines in the dark end of my basement hallway. Run the wire along the wall and under my door, and put black duct tape over the wire to blend it in with the thin plastic strap that runs along the base of the hallway's walls. I know this is silly, but I don't have anything better to do. Well, nothing happened. I propped the hallway to stairwell door, steeled myself, then flung the heavy door open, wide, and ran like hell down the stairs to my room. I slammed the door. I watched the webcam on my computer intently, seeing the hallway outside my door and most of the stairwell. I'm watching it right now, and I don't see anything interesting. I just wish the camera's position was different so that I could see the front door. But hey, somebody's online. I got out an older, less functional webcam that I had in my closet to video chat with my friend online. I couldn't really explain to him why I wanted to video chat, but it felt good to see another person's face. He couldn't talk for very long. We didn't talk about anything meaningful, but I feel much better. My strange fear has almost passed. I would feel completely better, but there was something odd about our conversation. I know that I've said that everything has seemed odd, but still he was very vague in his responses. I can't recall one specific thing that he said, no particular name or place or event, but he did ask for my email address to keep in touch. What? I just got an email. I'm about to go out. Just got an email from Amy that asked me to meet her for dinner at the place we usually go to. I do love pizza, but I've been eating random food from my poorly stocked fridge for days, so I can't wait. Again, I feel ridiculous about the odd couple of days I've been having. I should destroy this journal when I get back. Oh, another email. Oh my God. I almost left the email and opened the door. I almost opened the door, but I read the email first. It was from a friend I hadn't heard from in a long time, and it was sent to a huge number of emails that must have been every person he had saved in his address list. It had no subject, and it said simply, "Seen with your own eyes. Don't trust them, they..." The hell is that supposed to mean? The words shocked me, and I keep going over and over them. It is desperate to send an email just as this. Has something happened? The words are obviously cut off without finishing. On any other day, I would have dismissed this as spam from a computer virus or something, but the words, seen with your own eyes. I can't help but read over this journal and think back on the last few days and realize that I have not seen another person with my own eyes or talked to another person face to face. The webcam conversation with my friend was so strange, so vague, so eerie, now that I think about it. Was it eerie? Or is the fear clouding my memory? My mind toys with the progression of events I've written here, pointing out that I have not been presented with one single fact that I did not specifically give out unsuspectingly. The random wrong number that got my name and the subsequent strange return call from Amy, the friend asked for my email address. I messaged him first when I saw him online, and then I got my first email a few minutes after that conversation. Oh my God, that phone call with Amy. I said over the phone, I said that I was within a half-hour's walk of 7th Street. They know I'm near there. What if they're trying to find me? Where is everyone else? Why haven't I heard or seen anyone else in days? No. God, no, this is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. I need to calm down. This madness needs to end. I don't know what to think. I ran about my apartment furiously, holding my cell phone up to every corner to see if I got a signal through the heavy walls. Finally, in the tiny bathroom near one ceiling corner, I got a single bar. Holding my phone there, I sent a text message to every number in my list. Not wanting to betray anything about my unfounded fears, I simply sent, "You've seen anyone face to face lately?" At that point, I just wanted any reply back. I didn't care what the reply was or if I embarrassed myself. I tried to call someone a few times, but I couldn't get my head up high enough. And if I brought my cell phone down even an inch, I lost signal. Then I remembered. The computer. I rushed over it, instantly messaging everyone online. Most were idle or away from their computer. Nobody responded. My messages grew more and more frantic, and I started telling people where I was and to stop in by person for a host of barely passable reasons. I didn't care about anything at that point. I just wanted to see another person. I also tore apart my apartment, looking for something that I might have missed, some way to contact another human being without opening a door. I know it's crazy. I know it's unfounded, but what if I just need to be sure? I taped the phone to the ceiling just in case. The phone rang. Exhausted from last night's rampage, I must have fallen asleep. I woke up to the phone ringing and ran to the bathroom. Stood on the toilet and flipped open the phone taped to the ceiling. It was Amy, and I felt so much better. She was really worried about me, and apparently had been trying to contact me since the last time I talked to her. She's coming over now, and yes, she knows where I am without me telling her. I feel so embarrassed. I am definitely throwing this journal away before anyone sees it. I don't even know why I'm writing it now. Maybe it's just because it's the only communication I've had at all since God knows when. I look like hell too. Looked in the mirror before I came back in here. My eyes are sunken, my stubble is thicker, and I just look generally unhealthy. My apartment is trashed, but I'm not going to clean it up. I need someone else to see what I've been through. These past few days have not been normal. I am not one to imagine things. I know I've been the victim of extreme probability. I probably missed seeing another person dozens of times. I just happened to go out when it was late at night or the middle of the day when everyone was gone. Everything's perfectly fine. I know this now. Plus, I found something in the closet last night that helped me tremendously. A television. I set it up just before I wrote this, and it's on in the background. Television has always been an escape for me, and it reminds me that there's a world beyond these dingy brick walls. I'm glad that Amy's the only one that responded to me after last night's frantic pestering of everyone I could contact. She's been my best friend for years. She doesn't know it, but I count the day that I met her among one of the few moments of true happiness in my life. I remember that warm summer day fondly. It seems a different reality from this dark, rainy, lonely place. I feel like I've spent days sitting on that playground, much too old to play, just talking with her, hanging around, doing nothing at all. I still feel like I can go back to that moment sometimes, and it reminds me that this damn place is not at all there is. Finally, a knock on the door. I thought it was odd that I couldn't see her through the camera I hid between the two soda machines. I figured that it was bad positioning, like when I couldn't see out the front door. I should have known. I should have known. After the knock, I yelled through the door jokingly that I had a camera between the soda machines because I was embarrassed myself that I had taken this paranoia so far. After I did, I saw her image walk over to the camera, look down at it, smile, and wave. "Hey," she said to the camera brightly, giving it a wry look. "It's weird, I know," I said into the mic attached to my computer. "I've had a weird few days." "Must have," she replied. "Open the door, John." I hesitated. How could I be sure? "Hey, humour me for a second here," I told her through the mic. "Tell me one thing about us, just to prove to me you're you." She gave the camera a weird look. I'm alright, she said slowly, thinking. We randomly met at a playground, when both of us were way too old to be there. Is that good enough? I sighed deeply as reality returned and fear faded. God, I've been so ridiculous. Of course it was Amy. That day wasn't anywhere in the world except in my memory. I'd never even mentioned it to anyone, not out of embarrassment, but out of a strange, secret nostalgia and a longing for those days to return. If there was some unknown force trying to trick me as I feared, there was no way they could know about that day. "All right, I'll explain everything," I told her. "I'll be right there." I ran to my small bathroom and fixed my hair as best I could. It looked like hell, but she would understand. Snickering at my own unbelievable behavior and the mess I've made of the place, I walked to the door, put my hand on the doorknob, and gave the mess one last look. So ridiculous, I thought. My eyes traced over the half-eaten food laying on the ground, the overflowing trash bin, and the bed I'd tipped to the side looking for God knows what. I almost turned the door and opened it, but my eyes fell on one last thing. The old webcam. The one I used for that eerily vacant chat with my friend. Its silent black sphere lay haphazardly tossed to the side, its lens pointed at the table where this journal lay. An overwhelming terror took me as I realized that if something could see through that camera, it would have seen what I just wrote about the day. I asked her for any one thing about us, and she chose the only thing in the world that I thought they, or it, did not know. But it did. It did know. It could have been watching me the whole time. I didn't open the door. I screamed. I screamed in uncontrollable terror. I stopped on the old webcam on the floor. The door shook. The doorknob tried to turn, but I didn't hear Amy's voice through the door. Was the basement door made to keep out drafts too thick? Or was Amy not outside? Who could have been trying to get in if not her? What the hell is out there? I saw her on my computer through the camera outside. I heard her on the speakers on the camera outside, but it was real? How could I know? She's gone now. I screamed. I shouted for help, piled up everything in my apartment against the front door. The next day, well, at least it's Friday. I broke everything electronic. I smashed my computer to pieces. Every single thing on there could have been accessed by network access, or worse, altered. I'm a programmer. I know. Every little piece of information I gave out since this started, my name, my email, my location, none of it came back from outside until I gave it out. I've been going over and over what I wrote. I've been pacing back and forth, alternating between stark terror and overpowering disbelief. Sometimes I'm absolutely certain some phantom entity is dead set on that simple goal of getting me to go outside. Back to the beginning, with a phone call from Amy. She was effectively asking me to open the door and go outside. I kept running through it in my head. One point of view says I've acted like a madman. And all of this is the extreme convergence of probability. Never going outside at the right times by pure luck. Never seeing another person by pure chance. Getting a random nonsense email from some computer virus at just the right time. The other point of view says that extreme convergence of probability is the reason that whatever's out there hasn't gotten me already. I keep thinking I never opened the door on the 3rd floor. I never opened the front door until that incredibly stupid stunt with the hidden camera, which I ran straight to my room and slammed the door after. I haven't opened my own solid door since I flung open the front door of the building. Whatever's out there, if anything is out there, never made an appearance in the building before I opened the door. Maybe the reason it wasn't in the building already was that it was elsewhere, getting everyone else. And then it waited until I betrayed my existence by trying to phone a friend. A call which didn't work until it called me and asked me my name. Terror literally overwhelms me every time I try to fit the pieces of this nightmare together. That email, short, cut off. Was it from someone trying to get the word out? Some friendly voice desperately trying to warn me before it came? Seen with my own eyes. Don't trust them. Exactly what have I to be so suspicious of? It could have masterfully controlled all things electronic, practicing its insidious deception to trick me into coming outside. Why can't it get in? It knocked on the door. It must have some solid presence. The door. The image of those doors in the upper hallways as guardian monoliths flashes back in my mind every time I trace this path of thought. If there is some phantom entity trying to get me to go outside, I keep thinking back over all the books I've read or movies I've seen, trying to generate some explanation for this. Those have always been such intense foci of human imagination, always seen as wards or portals of special importance. Or perhaps the door is just too thick. I know that I couldn't bash through any of the doors in this building, let alone the heavy basement ones. Aside from that, the real question is, why does it even want me? If it just wanted to kill me, it could have done it any number of ways, including just waiting until I starve to death. What if it doesn't want to kill me? What if it has some far more horrific fate in store for me? to escape this nightmare. A knock at the door. I told the people on the other side of the door I need a minute to think, and I'll come out. I'm just writing this down so I can figure out what to do. At least this time I heard their voices. My paranoia, and yes, I recognize I'm being paranoid, has me thinking all sorts of ways that their voices could be faked electronically. There could be nothing but speakers outside simulating human voices. Did it really take them 3 days to come talk to me? Amy is supposedly out there, along with 2 policemen, the psychiatrist. Maybe it took them 3 days to think of what to say to me. The psychiatrist's claim could be pretty convincing if I decided to think this all has been a crazy misunderstanding and not some entity trying to trick me into opening the door. The psychiatrist had an older voice. Authoritarian, but still caring. I liked it. I'm desperate. Just to see someone with my own eyes. He said I have something called cyber psychosis. And I'm just one of a nationwide epidemic of thousands of people having breakdowns triggered by a suggestive email that got through somehow. I swear he said, got through somehow. I think he means spread throughout the country inexplicably, but I'm incredibly suspicious that the entity slipped up and revealed something. He said I am part of a wave of emergent behavior, that a lot of other people are having the same problem with the same fears, even though we've never communicated. That neatly explains the strange email about eyes that I got. I didn't get the original triggering email, I got a descendant of it. My friend could have broken down too and tried to warn everyone he knew against his paranoid fears. That's how the problem spreads, the psychiatrist claims. I could have spread it too. With my texts and instant messages online to everyone I know, one of those people might be melting down right now after being triggered by something I sent them. Something they may interpret in any way they want, something like a text, saying, "Seen anyone face to face lately?" The psychiatrist told me that he didn't want to lose another one. That people like me are intelligent, and that's our downfall. We draw connections so well that we draw them even when they shouldn't be there. He said it's easy to get caught up in paranoia in our fast-paced world, constantly changing place where more and more of our interaction is simulated. I have to give him one thing. It's a great explanation. It neatly explains everything. It perfectly explains everything, in fact. I have every reason to shake off this nightmarish fear that something or consciousness wants me to open the door so it can capture me for some horrible fate worse than death. It would be foolish, after hearing that explanation, to stay in here until I starve to death, or just to spite the entity that may have got everyone else. It would be foolish to think that. After hearing that explanation, I might be one of the last people left alive on an empty world, hiding in my secure basement room, spiting some unthinkable deceptive entity just by refusing to be captured. It's a perfect explanation for every single strange thing I've seen or heard, and I have every reason in my body to let all my fears go and open that door. That's exactly why I'm not going to. How can I be sure? How can I know what's real and what's deception? All of these damn things with their wires and their signals that originate from some unseen origin, they're not real. I can't be sure. Signals through a camera, faked video, deceptive phone calls, emails. Even the television lying broken on the floor. How can I possibly know it's real? It's just signals. Waves, light, the door. It's bashing on the door. It's trying to get in. What insane mechanical contrivance could it be to simulate the sound of men attacking their heavy door so well? I'll finally see it with my own eyes. There's nothing left in here for me to deceive myself with. I've ripped apart everything. It can't deceive my eyes, can it? Seen with your own eyes, don't trust them, they... Wait. Was that desperate message telling me to trust my eyes? Oh, warning me about my eyes. Oh, God. What's the difference between a camera and my eyes? They both turn light into electrical signals. They're the same. I can't be deceived. I have to be sure. I have to be sure. I calmly asked for a paper and a pen, day in and day out, until it finally gave them to me. Not that it matters. What am I going to do? Poke my eyes out? The bandages feel like part of me now. The pain is gone. I figure this will be one of my last chances to write legibly, as without my sight to correct my mistakes, my hands will slowly forget the motions involved. This is a sort of self-indulgence, this writing. It's a relic of another time because I'm certain everyone left in this world is dead. Or something far worse. I sit against the padded wall, day in and day out. The entity brings me food and water. It masks itself as a kind nurse, as an unsympathetic doctor. I think it knows that my hearing is sharpened considerably now that I live in darkness. It fakes conversations in the hallways, on the off chance that I might overhear. One of the nurses talks about having a baby soon. One of the doctors lost his wife in a car accident. None of it matters. None of it is real. None of it gets to me. Not like she does. That's the worst part. The part I almost can't handle. The thing comes to me. Masquerading as Amy. Its recreation is perfect. It sounds exactly like Amy, feels exactly like her. It even produces a reasonable facsimile of tears that it makes me feel on its lifelike cheeks. When it first dragged me here, it told me all the things I wanted to hear. It told me that she loved me, that she had always loved me, that it didn't understand why I was like this, that we could still have a life together. If only I would stop insisting that I was being deceived. It wanted me to believe. No. It wanted me, it needed me to believe that she was real. I almost fell for it. I really did. I doubted myself for the longest time. In the end, though, it was all too perfect, too flawless, and too real. The false Amy used to come every day, then every week. Finally, she stopped coming altogether. But I don't think the entity will give up. No. I think the waiting game is just another one of its gambits. It will resist. I will resist. For the rest of my life, if I have to. I don't know what happened to the rest of the world, but I do know that this thing needs me to fall for its deceptions, and if it needs that, then maybe, just maybe, I am the thorn in its agenda. Maybe Amy is still out there alive somewhere, kept alive only by my will to resist this deceiver. I hold on to that hope. rocking back and forth in my cell to pass the time. I will never give in. I will never break. I am a hero. The doctor read the paper the patient had scribbled on. It was barely legible, written in the shaky script of one who could not see. He wanted to smile at the man's steadfast resolve, a reminder of the human will to survive, but he knew that the patient was completely delusional. After all, a sane man would have fallen for the deception long ago. The doctor wanted to smile. He wanted to whisper words of encouragement to the delusional man. He wanted to scream, but the nerve filaments wrapped around his head and into his eyes made him do otherwise. His body walked into the cell like a puppet and told the patient once more that he was wrong and that there was nobody trying to deceive him. What? Oh no! You have to get out of here as soon as you can. There's no... God! Oh! Run! If you see the